This is J. Krishnamurti's second public talk in Paris, 1969.
We were going to this morning talk over together the question of fear. You know, we can pile up words upon words, gather a great many ideas, and come to definite conclusions. It's a bit loud still, isn't it? But what is most important is not the collection of ideas and words and theories, but to live without fear. And as we shall go into this question of fear this morning, I hope rather deeply, we should find out what action is, the doing. And I think we ought to begin with a very simple question, with a very simple issue. Most of us are caught in habits, physical and psychological habits. Some of us are aware of them and others are not. If one is aware, conscious of these habits, is it possible to stop a particular habit instantly? Not carry it over for many months, years. And becoming aware of one particular habit of any kind, is it possible to put an end to it without any form of struggle? To drop it instantly. Habit of smoking, a particular twitch of the head, the habitual smile, or the various forms of peculiar habits one has. To become conscious of it, like chattering endlessly about nothing, the restlessness, the chattering of the mind, and so on. Can one become aware of that? And without any form of resistance, control, end them easily, without effort, and immediately. In that is implied several things. First, the understanding that struggle against something, like a particular habit, only develops a form of resistance against that habit. And resistance in any form does breed more conflict. If one resists a habit, tries to suppress it, struggle against it, the very energy that is necessary to understand that habit is wasted through resistance, through every form of control and so on. Then, in that is involved, as we said, the second thing. One takes for granted that any particular habit must be slowly worn out, must slowly be suppressed or got rid of, which involves time. I'm sorry, it's too loud. Trop fort. As we said, the second thing is time. That is the idea that we'll gradually get rid of it. No. We've got into the habit of thinking that any particular habit can be gradually be gotten rid. And the other is to resist it. I hope you have the patience. So let's begin again. We are accustomed to this idea that it is only possible to be free of any habit through resistance. Developing the opposite habit. Or, to us, the idea that we shall get rid of it gradually, we have accepted. Resistance and the need of time to get rid of a particular habit. One sees that any form of resistance not only develops various forms of conflicts, and also one sees that time, that is taking many days, many weeks, many years, doesn't really end the habit. And yet we have accepted these two as a way of ending various forms of traditions, habits, and so on. And we are asking whether it is possible to end in a habit a particular way of walking and talking and chattering and so on, without resistance and without time, that is to do it immediately. I think one has to understand this issue fairly at the beginning of what we're going to talk about, which is fear. What is required, obviously, is not resistance or a series of days, but the quality of energy that can meet this habit and dissolve it immediately, which is the quality of attention. Attention is the very essence of all energy. To give one's attention means to give one's mind, one's heart, one's whole physical energy to attend. And with that energy, to face or to be aware of this particular habit. And you will see, if you are so aware, so completely attentive, then you will see that a habit has no longer any hold. It disappears instantly. But we think various habits are not particularly important. We can have them. What does it matter? And so we find an excuse for our habits. But if one could give this complete attention, not only at a particular moment, but establish the quality of attention in the mind, that is, the mind sees the fact, the truth, that energy is attention, and that attention is necessary to dissolve any particular habit. When the mind really understands that, then becoming aware of a particular habit or a tradition or what you will, then you will see for yourself that it completely comes to an end. I'm sure you have a particular habit or a tradition or a way of talking, or the endless chatter that one indulges in about nothing. If one becomes so attentively aware, then you have an extraordinary energy. That energy is not brought about through resistance, as most energies are. But this energy of attention is freedom. And therefore, when one looks at a particular habit, or be aware of it, then that habit comes to an end. Now, if one understands that really very deeply, not as a theory, but an actual fact which you have experimented, seen, and be aware of it. Then we can proceed to inquire into this whole nature and structure of fear. And also, we must bear in mind, when we are talking about this rather complicated question of fear, that communication, verbal communication between you and the speaker, becomes rather difficult if we are not listening with sufficient care, with sufficient quality of attention, then communication is not possible. If you are thinking about one thing and the speaker is talking about something else, then communication comes to an end, obviously. If you are concerned with your own particular fear, and your whole attention is given to that particular fear, then the verbal communication between you and the speaker also comes to an end. To communicate with one another verbally, there must be a quality of attention in which there is care, in which there is an intensity of the urgency to understand this question of fear, the urgency and the intensity. Otherwise, we will merely communicate verbally, and therefore that will have very little meaning. And communication implies also communion. Communication is verbal, and communion is non-verbal. When two people who know each other very well, without saying any words, they understand each other very well, completely, immediately, because they have established a certain form of communion between the two of them. So, when we are dealing with a very complicated issue as fear, there must not only be communion, but also communication verbally. The two must go together all the time. Or otherwise, we shall not be working together. Now, having said all this, which is necessary, let's consider this question of fear. We are not saying that you must be free from fear. Please follow this carefully. The moment you try to free yourself from fear, you create a resistance against fear. Right? That's fairly clear. And resistance in any form does not end fear. It will always be there. though you may escape from it, resist it, control it, run away from it, and so on. It'll always be there. And the running away, the controlling, the suppressing, all that is a form of resistance. And therefore, fear continues, and you develop the strength to resist. So we are not talking about being free from fear. Being free from something is not freedom. Please do understand this, because we are going to go into this question, and when we leave this hall, if you have given your whole attention to what is being said, you must leave the hall without any sense of fear. And that's the only thing that matters, not what the speaker says, doesn't say, or what you think, or you agree or disagree. What is important is that one should be totally, right through one's being, psychologically, in fear. So we are not saying that one must be free or resist fear, but understand this whole nature and structure of fear. Understand it. That means learn about it. Watch it. Come directly into contact with it. We are going to learn about fear, not how to escape from it, not how to resist it through courage and all that business, but we're to learn. And what does that word mean, to learn? Surely, accumulation of knowledge about something, like fear, is one thing, and learning about fear is another. Please do understand this, because what we're going to deal with will be rather useless unless you understand this completely. We think learning implies accumulation of knowledge about something which we are going to learn. That is, if one wants to learn Italian, one has to accumulate the meaning of words, the grammar, and how to put the sentences together and so on. Accumulate knowledge. And having gathered knowledge, then one is capable of speaking that particular language. That is, accumulation and action, right? Through knowledge, through experience. Now, such accumulation, we say, is not learning. Learning is always in the active present, not having accumulated act, but learning itself is a process of action, right? Which is always in the present. Is this somewhat clear? Am I making myself clear on this point? Because most of us are accustomed to this idea. First, let me accumulate knowledge, information, experience, and from there, act. We are saying something entirely different. Knowledge is always in the past. Knowledge is always the past. And when you act, the past is acting. What we are saying is something entirely different to that. We are saying learning is an act in the very action itself. As you are doing, you are learning. And therefore there is never an accumulation, right? Are we meeting each other? Yeah, I see, yes. Learning about a technique requires accumulation of knowledge. If you have to learn to drive, you must practice driving and accumulate it. Accumulate, get used to it, so it becomes natural. We are saying learning is always in the present and continuous. Now we are going to learn about fear. And therefore, the learning is something fresh. Right? Because if I come upon fear with past knowledge, with past memories, associations, then I do not come face to face with fear and therefore learn about it. I can only learn about something if my mind is fresh, new. And that's going to be our difficulty. Because we are going to approach fear with all the associations, memories, incidents, experiences, which will prevent us from looking at it afresh and learning about it anew. Right? Can we proceed from there now? So, what is fear? And is there only fear with its many expressions? Fear of death, fear of darkness, fear of losing a job, fear of the husband, wife, insecurity, fear of not fulfilling, fear of not being loved, fear of loneliness, fear of not becoming a great success, famous, Or is there only fear, which expresses itself in different ways. Right? If we are going to deal with fear, or going to deal with a particular fear of yours, or are we dealing with the fact of fear itself, not with a particular form of fear? Are we meeting each other? I'm not sure. Well, it's up to you. We are concerned with fear, and not with a particular fear. When we understand the nature of fear, not how fear expresses itself in a particular direction, if we can deal with the central fact of fear, then you will be able to resolve or do something about your particular fear. So don't take your particular fear and say, well, resolve this. I must resolve it. But understand the nature of fear and the structure of fear, and then you will deal with your own particular little, whatever fear you have. Right? And see how important it is that the mind must be in a state in which there is no fear whatsoever. Because when there is fear, there is darkness. Mind becomes dull. Mind then seeks various forms of escapes, stimulations through amusement, whether it's the amusement be in the church or in the football field or on the radio. Such a mind is incapable of clarity. And a mind that's afraid does not know what it means to love. It may know pleasure, but it certainly does not know what it means to love. So fear destroys and makes the mind ugly. So there is physical fear and psychological fear. There is the physical fear of danger. Like meeting a snake or a danger, a precipice. Then that fear, is it fear, the physical fear of meeting danger? Or is it intelligence? There is a precipice there. I see it, and I immediately react. I don't go near it. Now, is that fear or intelligence which says to me, be careful, there is danger? That intelligence has been accumulated through time. That is, people have fallen over, or my mother or friend has said, be careful of that particular precipice. So in that physical expression of fear, there is the tradition, the memory, and intelligence operating at the same time, right? Then there is the fear, physical fear of having had pain, a disease which has given a great deal of pain, and not wanting it again, right? That is, having known pain, not wanting to be repeated again. Purely a physical phenomenon. Now, can that fear be understood and not bring that fear into being at all? I don't know if you're following this. I have had pain. Most of us do. It happened last week or a year ago. The pain was excruciating. I don't want to repeat it. And I'm afraid it might come back. What has taken place there? Please follow this carefully. There's the memory of that pain, and the mind thought says, don't let it occur again. Be careful. Thinking about the past pain, being afraid of its repetition, thought says, brings upon itself fear. So that's a particular form of fear. Fear, physical fear of a danger, the fear of disease being repeated with its pain, and there are all the various psychological fears. Fear of what the neighbor might say, fear of not being highly bourgeois, respectable, fear of not following the social morality, which is immorality, fear of losing a job, fear of loneliness, fear of anxiety. You know, anxiety in itself is fear, and so on, so on, so on. All the product of a life which is based on thought, right? In this, there are several things involved. First, I hope I shan't be able, the speaker is not complicating the thing too much. But it is, you have to face all this when you have to go into this question of fear, and we're going to it. And if you don't understand, I'm sorry, but I must go on. There is not only the conscious fears, fear of which you know consciously, then there are also the deep hidden fears in the psyche, in the deeper layers of the mind. One may deal with the conscious fears of what the neighbor might say of your wife dominating you, or this or that. Become conscious of it. One can deal with those, but the deep, hidden fears are much more difficult. Now, how is one to bring all the unconscious, deep, hidden fears to the surface and expose them? You're following this? Can the conscious mind do that? Can the conscious mind, with its active thought, uncover the unconscious, the hidden? We are using the word unconscious non-technically, non-Freudian, Jungian, and all the rest of it. Just the word unconscious, which is not being conscious or aware or know the hidden layers. That's all. Can the conscious mind open the deep, secret, hidden layers in which there are many other fears? Can it? Please don't answer me. Don't say yes or no. Then you don't learn about it. We are looking at it. We are observing it. We are learning. We are seeing what actually is taking place. Can the conscious mind, the mind that is trained to adjust itself, to survive, to go with things as they are, not struggle, not fight, have a peaceful life? You know, the conscious mind, how tricky it is. Can the conscious mind uncover the whole content of the unconscious? I don't think it can. It may uncover one layer and translate that layer according to its own conditioning. And that very translation, according to its conditioning, will prejudice the mind, conscious mind. Therefore, when it examines the next layer, it is already prejudiced, conditioned, therefore it's incapable of examining the next layer completely. You're following all this? What? Come on. Can I repeat it? I'm afraid I can't. Oh, Lord. You see, you're not... As I can't repeat it, I'll begin again. Look, sir. For convenience, we have divided the mind into the hidden and open, right? The open mind, that is the conscious mind, says, I will examine, try to find out what is in the cellar, what is hidden, the cave. I must find out what that is. And it uncovers one layer, one spot. And in the examination of that particular groove or particular spot, it must translate very clearly, without any prejudice, what it sees. If there is any form of distortion, then it cannot understand it completely. And as it cannot understand it completely, with that prejudiced mind, it's going to examine the next layer. And therefore, it becomes more and more incapable of examination of the contents of the unconscious, right? Is that fairly clear? So one sees the mere conscious effort to examine the deeper content of the mind becomes extremely difficult unless the surface mind is completely free from all conditioning, from all prejudice, from all fear. Right? Otherwise, it's incapable of looking. So it says that may be extremely difficult or probably completely impossible. Perhaps there may be another way, altogether different. Come on. Please, sir, look, this is an extremely difficult thing to communicate. If you want to talk, go outside and talk, or do something else. If you want, please, this isn't an entertainment. This isn't an analysis. And if you're not interested, please have the goodness to go and do something else. Where am I? All right, sir. So I'm asking myself, is there another way, instead of the analytical process, is there another way of exposing the whole content of consciousness, both the surface as well as the hidden? You've understood my question? That is the analytical way ever going to free the mind from fear? The analysis. Not only self-analysis, but the professional analysis. That is through an analyst. Can the mind empty itself of all fear through analysis? Right? In that is involved something else. Now, when I analyze myself, look at myself, analyze it, take layer after layer, look at it, examine it, judge it, evaluate it, and say this is right, this is wrong, this I will keep, this I won't keep. The analyzer, is he different from the thing he analyzes? You must, I can answer it for myself. You have to answer it for yourself. Say the truth of it. The analyzer, is he different from the thing he is analyzing as jealousy, is he different? He is not different, because he is part of that. He is jealousy. And he breaks up the jealousy into the entity who says, I am different from jealousy, therefore I am going to look at jealousy, try to get rid of it or control it. But jealousy is part of the analyzer and the analyzed, right? Is this all getting rather too much? I'm afraid it is, but that doesn't matter. So, in the process of analysis, is it evolved time again? That is, I'll take many, many, many days or many years to analyze myself. And at the end of many years, I'm still afraid. So, for the speaker, analysis in any form is not the way. And if you see the truth of it, it won't be either for you. Because analysis implies a great deal of time. When the house is burning, you don't analyze, sit down and analyze. Take time, go to the professional and say, please tell me all about myself. You have to act. So analysis is a form of escape, laziness, and inefficiency. Maybe all right. I say maybe for the neurotic to go to an analyst, but even that is not completely the end of his neurosis. So that's a different question. So, analysis of this by the conscious into the of the unconscious is not the way, right? So the mind has said to itself, I won't analyze anymore. I see the valuelessness of it. I won't resist fear anymore. Please do all this. I won't be able to examine the whole content. I can't do it through analysis, which involves time, many days, and by the end of the many years, I'll be dead. Therefore, there must be a different approach to this altogether. You follow what has happened to the mind? When it is discarded the traditional approach, which is the approach of time, analysis, resistance, what has happened to the mind itself? The mind has become extraordinarily sharp. Mind has become, through not training or anything, because through the necessity of observation, the mind has become extraordinarily intense, sharp, alive. So it is asking, is there another approach to this problem of uncovering the whole content, which is the past, the racial inheritance, the family, the cultural, the the weight of religious tradition which has been cultivated for 2,000 years or 10,000 years. Can the mind be free of all that? Can the mind put away all that and therefore put away all fear? Is there a different approach? Right? Are you listening to the speaker, or are you asking these questions yourself? What? You're doing both? Are you waiting for the speaker to tell you of the different approach? Or are you facing the problem so that you are onto the approach yourself? You know, someone can tell you are hungry. That's one thing. But to know for yourself you are hungry is another. Which is it with you? Somebody telling you are hungry, or are you hungry yourself? If you are hungry yourself, then there is quite a different energy and action taking place. But if you are being told that you are hungry, then out of that information you get hungry, then it's a false hunger. So there it is. Is there a different way of exposing the whole content of the mind, the consciousness, including the unconscious, with all its accumulated tradition, culture, various influences, and be in a state where fear doesn't touch it at all? Right? Good Lord, it's 12 o'clock. We have spoken for an hour. Shall I go on with this? I don't know if you can stand it after an hour. So I've got this problem. A problem which a sharpened mind, a mind that has put aside every form of analysis, time, and therefore to it there is no tomorrow, right? It must resolve it completely now. Therefore, no ideal. There is no question of a future saying, I will be free of it. And therefore, the mind now is in a state of complete attention, right? Because it's no longer escaping, no longer inventing time as a way of resolving the problem or analysis or resistance. Therefore, the mind itself has a quality entirely new. So, how can this mind look into the content of the past, which is hidden in the consciousness, in consciousness, right? There is the question of dreams. It is said that the professionals, the experts, the psychologists say you must dream. Not that I have read any of their books. I don't read any books except detective novels. If the professionals say you must dream, otherwise you'll go mad. And I ask myself, why should I dream at all? Which is much more important than saying I must dream. Is there a way of living so that there is no dream at all? Because then, if there is no dream at all, the mind really has rest. You following all this? It has been active all day, watching, listening, asking, questioning, looking at the beauty of a cloud, the face of a beautiful person, the water, the movement of life and the tree, and it's been watching, watching, watching. And when it goes to sleep, it must have complete rest. Otherwise, when it wakes up next morning, it's tired, it has become old. So one asks, not one must dream, but is there a way of not dreaming at all? So that the mind during sleep has complete rest, and during sleep it can come upon certain qualities which cannot during the waking hours. So I'm going to find out. The mind doesn't dream at all. Right? Is that possible? Are you also asking the question? Or are you waiting for an answer from me? It is possible only, and this is a fact, not a supposition, not a theory, not an invention, or a hope. This is possible only when you are completely awake during the day, right? And you're completely awake, watching every activity of your thought, your feeling. Awake to every motive, to every intimation, hint that is deep down. That when you chatter, when you talk, when you walk, when you listen to somebody, when you're watching your ambition, your jealousy, when you respond to the glory of France, when you read a book which says your religious beliefs are nonsense, to see what is implied in belief, so that during the waking hours you're completely awake. when you're sitting in the bus watching, when you're talking to your wife, to your children, to your friend, when you're smoking, why you are smoking. When you read a detective story, why you are reading it. When you go to a cinema, why? For excitement, for sex. And when you see a beautiful tree or the movement of a cloud across the sky, to be so completely aware of what is happening within and without, then you will say, when you go to sleep, there isn't a dream. And when you wake up next morning, your mind is fresh, intense and alive. I think I better stop there. It's 12:10. That's enough. We'll continue with this question of fear tomorrow. Not tomorrow, when is it? Thursday. Do you want to ask any questions about all this?
How does the process of separating the analyzer and the analyzed take place?
How does the separation between the analyzer and the analyzed take place? What is going?
How does the separation arise between the analyzer?
Yes, that's what I said. How does this separation between the analyzer and the analyzed take place? How does the separation, when you watch a tree, the separation, there is the tree, the beauty of it, the naked branch. When you watch it, why is there the separation between you and the tree? Wait. Go slowly, sir. Patience, go patience. Not that you want to become the tree, that God forbid. That would be stupid. But there is this separation. How does it come about? You look at it with memory, don't you? With your botanical knowledge, or like and dislike, or wishing that tree was in your particular backyard, or hope that you would, and so on, so on, so on. So there is between you and the tree a screen of words, screen of memories, experiences, which separates. As between you and your wife, there is a screen of the image, right? So there is a separation. Now, you're asking, why is there a division, a separation between the analyzer and the observer and the observed, or the analyzer and the analyzed? Actually, is there any separation? When you look at it with clarity, there is no separation. But yet, there is a separation when you say, I must control it, I must suppress it, I must change it, I must run away from it, I must resist it. That means there is the resistor and the thing against which you resist. So you're asking, how does this take place? Which is a false movement. The other is real, but this is artificial. How does this artificial state come into being? Right? Huh? You're going back to dreams, sir? Are you asking if you're completely attentive, you have no dream? Yes. But we are talking about the observer and the observed. Yes, I haven't finished the question, sir. Sir, to answer your question very briefly about the dream and attention, I said when you give complete attention during the day, right through the day, not just one part of the day, right from the moment you wake up, the moment you go to bed, completely awake, so that nothing escapes you. Inwardly, watching every movement of thought, watching what you say, what you think, what you feel, giving your whole attention, all during the day, the 12 hours, and you will see the mind there is no dream at all, because you are exhausted. And also because all the intimation, all the content is exposed. We'll go into that perhaps on Thursday. You're asking, why is there this artificial division between the observer and the observed? This artificial division is part of our tradition. God and the devil, the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, the social morality which is no morality, and the immorality which is not social morality. There is division all through our life, which is the opposites. Now, when you look at an opposite, one opposite, that is fear and courage, the two opposites. When you look at it, courage is the outcome of fear. If you have no fear, there will be no courage. You will be something entirely different. The quality of non-fear is not being very courageous, but quite a different quality of mind in which there is no opposites. And we are trained from the beginning of our from the childhood, to think in opposites. That's part of our tradition, part of our habit, so that we accept it. We never question it. So, this division is part of the tradition of our culture. And this division, being artificial, has not been able to solve any of the problem of division. You, the Frenchman, and the another is a German or a Hindu, whatever it is. We keep to our own little groups, separate, we and they, and fight. That's what we are used to. So, it is not only traditional, but also it's very convenient. Because when we say I am the observer and the thing observed is different from me, I can take time over it. I say, well, I will eventually become non-violent. You understand? There is the ideal of non-violence, and I am violent. And it's very convenient to have an ideal. Because eventually I'm going to become non-violent. In the meantime, I'm beastly violent. That pays me. I enjoy violence. I like it. It has its own profits and pleasures. Therefore, that's another form of convenience. So I divide everything into pleasure and pain. So this artificiality has its own danger, which we don't see. And when we see the danger of it, there's the ending of it. And therefore no longer caught in the duality as the observer and the observed.